Namaste, beautiful. Welcome to practice. Today we are going to be learning Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salutation A. This is something I put in almost every single one of my practices. It comes from the Ashtanga series, or all of the Ashtanga series. This is the opening. This is the first thing that you do to prepare the body for the rest of practice. I practice quite a bit of Ashtanga by myself, and I believe in it quite a lot. So yeah, eventually I will teach Ashtanga here on this channel. I don't think that my personal practice is quite at the level yet that I feel comfortable teaching, because you can find someone else who's better at it, right? I learned from Laruga Glazer online. I also learned in person in my teacher trainings, of course, but yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, so I would recommend that if you are trying to learn all of Ashtanga. The reason that I'm teaching this is because I put it in so many of my classes, and I don't really teach it during the class because I kind of assume, okay, everybody knows Sun Salutation, but you know, when you make, when you assume, right? So I don't want to assume that, and so I thought, okay, let me just take some time to teach it. So yeah, let's go ahead and start. So if we were practicing Ashtanga, then we would start with the opening mantra, which I do when I practice by myself, but since this is not full Ashtanga class, this is just Sun Salutation A, then you can do that on your own if you want to, or otherwise we can just get into learning. Okay, so after we've chanted the mantra, then we would have been standing with our hands in Anjali Mudra for Pranamasana, and then we're going to start Samastati, or Samastati. So our hands are by our side, our feet are such that the big toes are touching and the heels are slightly apart. Okay, so I'll turn around as well. Okay, so we have our toes touching, heels slightly apart. So it's different than if we were practicing Hatha Sun Salutation, in which case our feet are hip width distance apart. So we want our big toes touching. I have them so that the bottom knuckles are touching and then also the top is touching. Yeah. And so then we are here, this is our beginning, and then so it's vinyasa. So vinyasa technically means one breath, one movement. So this is like the original vinyasa, is the Sun Salutations. So with an inhale, then we reach our arms up. And so I think I'm a little bit out of the camera. I'll come back so you can see. So our hands are almost directly above the head. They can be directly above the head, and then you can be looking up at the hands with the head back a bit. Yeah, that's generally kind of how I do it. So we're not really bending our back here. We're just kind of bringing the hands up overhead and then looking straight up at the hands for our first pose, okay? So we inhale, then we have our hands up, and we're looking up at the hands. And then as we exhale, then we fold forward. I always bring my hands to Pranamasana, or to Anjali Mudra, as I'm folding forward. I don't know if it's necessary, but it feels good. So exhale, we fold forward. So our forward fold, we want for the back to be pretty straight here. And so ideally, right, our back would be pretty straight, and then we're folding our stomach onto the thighs. So it's folding. Right, if you fold something, you know, like folding a piece of paper, right? You're just putting one side over the other side, right? So we're folding here, and different people will give you different recommendations if it's not quite in your body yet to be able to fold and place your stomach over your thighs. Well, first I'll be totally honest, I have never experienced that before. I don't know what that feels like. My body has been very flexible my whole life. It's less flexible than it was when I was a kid because, you know, puberty and stuff. So I can tell you my recommendation from what I've learned, and also I cannot tell you from experience when it comes to something like this. So what I've learned is that it is best for the back specifically if when you're folding forward, if you can't reach the floor, to bend the knees and to still be maintaining that contact with the belly and the thighs. Yeah. So, of course, then over time, hopefully you can straighten until you can be folded forward. But if that is not in your practice yet, then I encourage you to play around with different things. So maybe instead you have the flat back, but you don't reach the floor. So play around with what feels best in your body, but I think probably it feels nice to be touching the floor here. Okay. So we have our inhale, we're looking up at the hands, we exhale, we fold forward, folding the belly over the thighs, and we're looking at the big toes here. So our head is not like completely in line, right? Because if our head was in line, then our head would be descending toward the floor, but we want to be kind of looking at our toes. And then we're going to inhale and flatten the back. So there's several different ways that people do this. I even switch up the way that I do it. Sometimes I have my hands flat on the floor when I do the flat back. Sometimes I come up to my fingertips. I never do it this way, but that's also a way to do it. So again, finding what works in your body, especially if you're not doing an Ashtanga practice, and if you're just doing this as part of your vinyasa practice, we're doing it in my vinyasa practices, then it's not super important to be exact about it, yeah? So we come to a flat back, and I'm doing it, now I'm doing it the way I never do it. I'm doing it the way that you could be doing it if you don't have the mobility to have the fingers on the floor or to have the hands on the floor. Okay, but the idea is that the back is flat and we're lifting the head and we're bringing our heart forward. Yeah. And okay, so inhale, arms up, exhale, fold forward, and then inhale, our flat back. And then from here we go directly into chaturanga. So normally, if it is the first time through, then I will step back instead of jumping back. So we'll do that first. So you can step back and then go directly into chaturanga. Yeah? So not coming up to plank first, like directly to chaturanga. Yeah? So we're doing this with an exhale. Our chaturanga. My arms are tired. I'm like, I don't want to teach chaturanga. So we're trying to be on the toes in the back such that the heel is pretty directly over the toes. And then our elbows are quite bent and we're looking forward in chaturanga. So the arms are in line with the upper body, we're looking forward. Yeah. And then with an inhale, we come to our upward dog. And so here, depending who you ask, you might want to squeeze your glutes, you might not want to squeeze your glutes. Again, I recommend playing around with it. I used to squeeze the glutes and now I relax them, and that feels better in my back when I relax the glutes instead of squeezing them in upward dog. So in our upward dog, I will turn. Then we have our hips are off of the floor instead of on the floor. Right, so we're hovering the hips and our toes are on the floor. And so now we are about hip width distance apart with the feet in our upward facing. And so upward facing, we're looking up at the nose. In Ashtanga, we're often looking at the nose. And one of the benefits of that is when you are looking only close and not taking in all of this other information, it saves quite a bit of energy. So if you're looking at the nose, then you're not using all of this energy that it takes for your body to be gathering the information of everything that it sees, right? So something to keep in mind, something that can help with your energy level throughout the practice. Yeah? Okay. So from upward facing, which we will go to with an inhale, then we go to downward dog. And so, I didn't talk about the feet. Okay, so from chaturanga to upward facing, there are different ways that you can change your feet positioning. And I do different ways based on my energy level. And yes, and also how my shoulders are feeling, like how my body's feeling. I will change the way that I move my feet from chaturanga to upward dog. Yeah, so one way would be to simply take one foot and then put it down, and then the other foot and put it down, and then inhale. And the other way, which is the traditional Ashtanga way, so I got different information from my different teacher trainings about this particular transition. So be careful with the way that you do it. So from our chaturanga, then traditionally we would push all the way forward and then be tucking the toes from there. The thing is that that can put you over your wrist quite a bit and can be a bit difficult on both the wrist and the back that way. So yeah, I got a feel into your body. Yeah. And then, so now we're going to push back into downward dog. And so from here, you can either be coming up and doing it slowly, so you come up onto the toes like this, and then one at a time you flip them. And again, sometimes I do it that way, but again, Ashtanga, you kind of do it in one movement. So it's hard to do it slowly, so I'll show you that. Okay, so we have our upward facing, inhale, and then we come to downward facing, and just kind of, it's almost like a jump to then get them to go at the same time, facing the floor, standing on the floor. Yeah. So downward dog, there's a lot of alignment things in downward dog. I'm not doing it right now. So we have our hands so that they're about shoulder width distance apart. Pointer fingers are facing forward. So we'll go from the hands and then up to the shoulders, and we have our armpits. We want to be kind of looking at each other. Yeah, so if there's an eye on each of our armpits, then they're looking toward each other. Okay, our head is looking toward the navel, toward the belly button. So our head is kind of in here. Yeah? Our back is pretty straight, and then our hips, we don't want them up completely to the ceiling. We kind of want them up and back. So the tailbone is facing more back than up, kind of. Pointing with my foot. Okay. Our feet are hip width distance apart, and ideally we have our heels on the floor, and our heels are tucked behind the toes, right? So I can't see my heels from here. I want them in a nice straight line. And so then we will take 5 breaths here. And then from here, after our 5 breaths, then we will step forward or hop or jump forward. But for the purpose of this, we will step. And then you go directly back to our flat back. And then we go back to our forward fold with an exhale. And then we inhale. Whoops. And come back to standing. Exhale. And back to Namaste. Yeah? Okay. Let's do it again. This time let's step back with the left foot, and then we will do it in real time, and we will, then I'll teach you the hopping to the best of my ability, which is not yet to the best of hopefully my potential. It's quite difficult. The entire thing is quite difficult if you do it correctly, I guess. So yeah, again, another reason that I'm not actually teaching the whole thing yet. Okay? All right, so here we go. So we inhale, arms up, look up at the hands. Exhale, fold forward, bring the belly to the thighs and look at the big toes. Inhale, flatten the back, bring the heart forward and the head forward. And then exhale, you can step the left foot back and then the right foot to meet it and coming down into chaturanga, bending the arms. Inhale, either untucking one toe at a time or pushing all the way forward into our upward dog. So we're looking at our nose and our head is back. Our feet are hip width distance apart, our hips are off of the floor. And then we exhale, bringing the, so we're using the abs here, right? So you're using the abs to pull the belly up, and then once we get to here, then we can untuck the toes, or you can do it fast and untuck them all at the same time. Okay, we have our hands, shoulders width distance apart. Our pointer fingers are facing forward. Our armpits are facing toward each other. We are looking toward our navel. Our tailbone is up and back. Our back is nice and flat. Our knees are straight. Our feet are hip width distance apart. Our heels are behind our toes. And we hold this for 5 breaths, which it's probably been about 5 breaths by now, so let's move it forward. So then with an inhale, then we step forward and come into our flat back again, bringing our heart forward and our head forward, looking forward. And then we exhale, fold over the legs, and then inhale, bring the arms back up, looking up at the hands, and then exhale, bringing our hands to heart center and back to Samasthiti. All right, now I will try to teach you how to float back to the best of my ability. And so usually when I'm practicing, so in Ashtanga, then we go 5 times through Sun Salutation A. And that's how we open the practice. 5 times. So ideally, right by the 5th time, then our hamstrings are quite open, we're warmed up, and we're ready to move into our Sun Salutation Bs. Also, after the first two, hopefully our hamstrings are warmed up enough that we can float back more comfortably. Yep. And so let's try. And I will show once we get down to moving to chaturanga, then I will do my best to teach you. So we take an inhale, we reach the arms up overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, heart forward, head up, flat back. And then when we plant the hands, and so I actually play around with where I plant my hands here. I would like to be able to press from having them quite close to my feet, and I'm not there yet. So I have them about maybe, I saw something that was called girl measuring the other day, and it was like someone using their hands. This is totally what I do. It's probably like 6 to 8 inches in front of my feet. And so place them here because it makes it a little bit easier to then lift up and then float back. So the way that I'm able to lift up now is, so you lean forward kind of until the toes come up and then shoot the feet back. So the full version is that you would lean forward and then bring the feet up straight with straight knees and then shoot them back. But that's not in my body yet, so I can only tell you that. I cannot show it to you. Yeah? Okay, so like, how do I? So it's scary, and it's okay that it's scary. So what we want to do is we do want to just lean as far forward as you can, and then like basically when you feel like you're gonna fall, then try seeing if the feet will come up. Yeah? Okay? So we're leaning, 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 and then lift, and then shoot. Can't think of how else to teach it other than that, so hopefully that is helpful. And then we'll inhale upward facing, exhale downward facing, and we take our 5 breaths here. And so then after our 5 breaths here, then we want to float forward. So let me see how well I can do it today. So we come up onto the balls of the feet to kind of help. And so I kind of like to, you probably can't hear that, my wrist crack. My wrist crack every time I go forward a bit. So I kind of come forward to like give me some momentum, and then bend the knees, and then hop up to handstand, and then slowly come down. And so then you're still landing in the flat back here with an inhale, and then folding. So hopping forward. So at the time that you hop, then you kind of want to pull back on the shoulders in order to get the position, right? Because when you just jump this way, then you can be too far forward on the shoulders, and that could be preventing you from getting the floating. And so when you hop, then kind of pull back, but they're gonna be over here, right? So you're pulling them back, and then that can help you to float. It's hard to instruct. sometimes. Alright, so let's try that again. Alright, so coming up onto the toes, coming over the wrists a little bit, bending the knees, and then looking forward, and then hop. Whoops! Sometimes you might hop a little too far, and that's fine. Especially if you're trying to tell other people what to do. Okay, so hop, and then you can also have your legs just straight here, or I mean not all the way up, and then slowly, 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 and then you want to gently, gently, gently place them down. Yeah. And inhale with a flat back. Exhale to fold forward. And come up. And hands to heart center and down to Namaste A. Okay, so that was our third round. So now let's try to do two together to complete our 5 rounds. And yeah. All right, so here we go. And Namaste A. Inhale, arms up, look up at the hands. Exhale, fold forward, belly over the thighs. Inhale, flatten the back, heart forward, head forward. Exhale, come back to chaturanga however you need to. Inhale, push forward, coming up to downward facing, looking up at the nose. Exhale, come back to downward facing. Let me take our 5 breaths here. Checking our alignment, making sure our hands are shoulders width distance, our fingers are pointing forward, our armpits are toward each other, our gaze is toward the navel, our hips are up and back, our feet are hip width distance, and our heels are tucked behind our toes. All right, with an inhale, come up onto the toes, look forward, bend the knees, and float. Continuing our inhale as we flatten the back. Exhale. Inhale. Come all the way up, hands up, and exhale. Namaste A. Okay, let's do one more time. Maybe a little bit faster. All right, here we go. Inhale, arms up, look toward the hands. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, heart forward, head up. Exhale, moving back to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing, looking at the nose. Exhale, downward facing, looking at the navel. And holding for 5 breaths. Armpits facing toward each other, hands, shoulders width distance apart. Point your fingers forward. Feet hip width distance. Heels tucked behind the toes. All right. Inhale, come up onto the toes. And float it forward. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale all the way up to standing, reach the arms overhead. Exhale, Namaste. Wonderful. All right, so there we have it. Surya Namaskar A, explained in as much detail as I could think of to do. I hope it was helpful. If you have any other questions or comments, concerns, please feel invited to let me know. And otherwise, I will see you in the next class. Thank you for being here. Love and namaste.